Well, good evening, everybody. Harry Schroeder with you from ValleyHoopsInsider.com. Tonight's edition of Voices of the Valley. We've got two of the great sports writers in the Missouri Valley Conference with us tonight. Todd Hefferman of the Southern Illinoisan, covering the Southern Illinois Salukis. Jim Benson from the Pantagraph, covering the Illinois State Redbirds. We'll talk to both of them about this early season non-conference games that are going to start tomorrow, the earliest in the history of the league, we believe. As four teams play on Wednesday night, four games on Wednesday night, and one more game on Thursday night. And we're excited about this particular basketball season. It's been a little uneven in the beginning, but we're excited to bring in Todd Hefferman and Jim Benson with us tonight. And first of all, gentlemen, thanks for just joining me tonight. You were two of my favorite guys ever. I mean, I just enjoy you guys so much. Jim, tell us first about the Pantagraph, yourself a little bit, and your coverage of the Redbirds.
Well, this is my 16th year on the ISU beat, Harry. I covered Illinois, University of Illinois, for the 17 years before that, so I was lucky to go to two Final Fours, which was kind of cool. I've been at the Pantagraph for 40 years this year.
Wow.
Kind of like a dinosaur. Not many people stay in this profession that long anymore, but cover everything from college stuff to high school stuff, and just have kind of enjoyed the whole ride here. And I love living in Bloomington Normal, raised our two daughters here, and it's a great place to live.
And Todd Hefferman's making a wardrobe change, right?
Wardrobe change.
Live on Twitter.
Wardrobe change.
Todd, how long for you at the Southern?
Well, yeah, I've been at the Southern for 18 years. I've had the SIU beat since January of 2008. Your friends and my friends probably know that this is my last game tomorrow. I'm getting out of the business. So the Salukis made the NCAA tournament 6 years in a row before I started. So I thought I'd get out of the way so they can make the NBC tournament championship run this year.
That's hilarious. Well, listen, I told you this on Twitter and I've told you this privately. I am just happy for you if you're happy, and super sad for me and Jim, because we will deeply miss you.
Yes, no doubt. Todd's one of the best guys in the league. I'm going to miss every time he comes to Normal, Harry. We always go to Portillo's for our pregame meal, and I'm going to miss that. I might have to go by myself when the Salukis come here and just kind of sit there and shed a tear.
Well, now I was at Illinois State a couple of weeks ago. You didn't call me and then ask me to go to that restaurant.
That's just for Todd and I, But now since Todd's gone, maybe I'll invite you next time you come.
I appreciate it. Todd, you're going into a sales job, something like that. And before we dive into basketball stuff, it really is sad for me, like I said, because I love interacting with you and love your work. But the newspaper business it's just struggling right now across the nation, isn't it?
Well, it's a hard industry. I mean, we all know that, but I've heard 200 newspapers have closed in the last 5 years. It's and I've got a great gig, guys. We have a union here. It's a great contract. I'm one of the longest tenured people here. It was totally my decision, but the hours and everything seems to bleed into something else 7 days a week, and I'm gonna miss it. It hasn't hit me yet, but like tomorrow and Thursday driving back is going to be my last day, maybe ever. I may freelance or I may not. I may go study to be a paralegal. I may write the great American novel. I may write Jim Benson's, autobiography.
Yeah, come on.
For him, with him. So
that wouldn't take you too long.
I will miss you guys. The beat writers are some of my best friends, and I don't have a lot of close friends, so I will miss you guys. Mike is going to let me come to the tournament, I think, to see you guys in March if I can get the time off. So I'm looking forward to that. I will miss walking out there on quarterfinal Friday, even if SIU wasn't on it. I always look forward to that day.
Before we head off into games, you write for the Blue Ribbon. You write for the Bible of basketball. You could still do that, yes?
Yeah, I may still try to keep that job just to stay in it. I have 5 or 6 schools right now, so I may look into that. Yeah, I may try to keep that, or I may just get rid of it all and read a book instead of write one.
Wow, man! Wow, it's amazing. I was telling Jim before you jumped on, before we went live, my wife is retiring from her job this Friday, and she's going through all those emotions of I love it, but I'm leaving, and all those things you're going through, my wife was going through this week too. So it's real life stuff.
Yeah.
So guys, we have the earliest Missouri Valley Conference games in the history of Valley Conference in 115 years. They say there was a game on December 2nd one time back in the 1950s. What do you like this early game scheduling? Either one of you, give me a thought about, having it so early.
I personally think it's great. I think it adds a little bit of interest, especially when the students are on campus this early, so that they can attend a game, because if we played this December 29th, there would be no students on any campus. So I personally think it's great, and I would enjoy 2 games. So you have one home and one away, because I think that the teams that are the visiting teams this week get kind of jobbed a little bit, because they're going to have their game when students aren't on campus. And we all know, we've been to the game. Students really matter. The public matters, but the students just really bring the energy. So personally, I think it's great.
Todd, your thoughts?
And I don't like it. I really don't like it. I think it's great that we're all talking about the Valley this early, and they're playing a game that matters. But I always enjoyed turning the page to the conference season and going 18 games in a row, and this is who you got. And teams, unless you're a veteran team, you got a lot of things to work out still. I mean, Evansville's played 9 games. I don't think anybody else has played more than 6 or 7. And if you've got, SIU's still missing 2 potential starters, Trent Brown and Ben Harvey haven't played for a while. Trent Brown hasn't played at all. They're still trying to work out some things, I think. And now you're playing a game that really matters, because I looked it up today. 4 of the last 5 years, the race has gone down to 1 game or less. That's crazy. This game will come down at the end to thinking about, well, what if we won the first one? So that's what I don't think it's really the fairest thing to do, but I think it's got us all here talking about Valley basketball on a Tuesday night. So I think it's got some pluses, but I would rather have just the non-conference and the conference season.
I think Mike Kern put out a stat today. I think only 4 teams in the last 27, 28 years that have lost their first game in conference play have gone on to win the conference. And so you've got 5 major games going on this week, if that is a stat that's going to hold true. Jim, your biggest positive surprises in the league so far, the thing that you said, oh, this stood out, this surprised me that this is going so well, or this player has broken out in such a way.
I think the biggest surprise for me, Harry, is I thought the Valley would make a bigger splash in some of the marquee games they had. I know Loyola played in a really tough tournament, probably one of the toughest tournaments in the country. They could have won that first game. Then they played with Auburn. They did get one against Arizona State, but Drake going down and losing 3 games in a row, I think that really hurts the Valley. Everybody has at least 2 losses now. That gets me to thinking, is there any chance at all for more than 1 bid, the conference tournament this year? Probably the days are dwindling now where you can register really a big marquee win. And, most teams, especially with the MTE tournaments, they're all done now. So now, unless you can win on somebody else's court, probably where you're going to go. I know Missouri State has a game at home against BYU on Saturday, so that they can make a little bit of noise there, but it just seems to me right now, nobody has put themselves in a position to possibly snag an at-large bid, and that's the biggest takeaway I've taken.
Todd, how about you? Biggest surprises so far?
Well, I guess I've been surprised with Illinois State's fight. I just thought it would take them a lot longer to get all those pieces together. I thought Reeves would have a nice start. I didn't think he'd have as great a start as he has. I thought, just like Jim said, I thought the Valley had some great opportunities that they just threw away. I mean, Drake had 3 games. Missouri State didn't win their tournament in Naples. That wasn't real good. They lose their opener to SEMO, give up 99 points in their first game, and they still can't win the big one yet, even with that veteran team and that great roster. And Southern had a great game against Creighton that is in the top 100 of the Ken Palm right now, and lost it at the end. Had a chance to put that game away a lot far before that. So I was real disappointed with that. But I will say I think Drake has some great games still coming up. And then Northern Iowa has the top 25 win.
They have a top 25 win. They have an MTE around Christmas. Bradley has another little tournament that they're in later as well. And so we do hope, as Valley apologists, that there's going to be some opportunities to get some of those wins. I agree with you guys. Here's a stat that surprises me. Marcus Damask, your guy, Todd, and AJ Green, both coming back from those injuries, are both in the top 3, 4, 5 in the league in minutes played. I'm surprised at how much both of those guys are being run out there by their head coaches. Your thoughts, either of you?
No, I'm not surprised. Marcus was tied for first when he was a freshman. They have some more depth, I think, at that position, but he's played really well the last 3 games. And he helps them at both ends. He helps them as a rebounder. He's a real mismatch for some teams offensively because he can post up and he can shoot threes and he can pass out there. So I think he just trusts Marcus the most, and he's in good enough shape. You know, he can play those minutes. He's averaging over 37 right now.
Yeah. And Jim, you're Antonio Reeves. Did you see him leading the league in scoring like he is right now? I mean, we knew he could score, but 12 points a game, I think, a year ago, and over 20 right now.
Yeah, not at what he's done so far. I thought he was a guy, Harry, that really could average about 20 points a game. Just seeing how he came back from going down to Miami, where he worked out for the NBA. You know, thinking about going into the NBA draft, he really worked with a couple pro guys down there, a couple guys who were going into the draft, and I think he really took a lot out of that. So when I saw him, at first of the year, I thought, man, this guy. I told Bill Salyer of ISU, the SID, I said he's going to average over 20 points a game this season. Now I have to kind of refrain that a little bit now because I didn't think they'd have the other scoring that they have. Chapman has really come on. I mean, he's got to be the most improved player in the league. If anybody saw him last year, I mean, in the 5 games that he played before he opted out, I mean, yeah, he didn't do anything really. So Chapman has come on. Freeman can score. Freeman scored at Tennessee State. He averaged 17.5 points a game. They want him to be a little bit more of a facilitator here than he was there, but he can score. Kendall Lewis can score. So they have more scoring than I thought they would. So I would think by the end of the season, Reeves will probably be down as about 18 points, but he's the guy who's going to take the big shots when they need him.
Redbirds are leading the entire league in scoring as a team as well, and some of that has to do with the competition you're playing and those kinds of things. But I've been super impressed. I was there, as I mentioned, your game against Murray State, I guess it was, and I thought Chapman was good that night, and I watched a couple of games on TV. He's dynamically different than he was a year ago, and he is more of a warrior inside. He's not a post player maybe by nature or size, but he's a real warrior inside, isn't he, Jim?
Yeah, he really is. They need a little more help behind him, though, and they're trying to work through that. They have Ryan Schmidt, who's a 6'11" JUCO kid, starting to come along a little bit, kind of game by game. You can see him kind of getting his confidence, but they're going to need some good minutes from him, especially when they go against these big guys in the league, starting with Prim tomorrow night. But Illinois State's problem is they can't stop anybody right now, Harry. Their defense is the worst in the league by far. And two games ago they were second in the country from the bottom in points allowed. I really thought their defense would be a lot better. And if they don't shore that up pretty quick, they're not gonna beat anybody.
Todd, I want to talk about some of the matchups this week, but first. You mentioned Brown and I forget the other player that's out right now. The Salukis are really struggling physically, aren't they?
Yeah, they've had some injuries, but they've also had pretty good depth. I think they're playing 7 or 8 guys. Right now 9. They have 3 bigs they can throw out there really, and then they can play small ball with Marcus. Lance Jones is really having a big year for them right now. they've kind of gotten over their turnover bug. I thought they were going to average 25 turnovers a game for a while there. They've had less than 12, I think 3-4 games in a row now. So Dalton Banks has really kind of helped them, and Lance has kind of helped them a little bit in that regard. And they're defending. They're second in the league in defense, but their field goal percentage defense is towards the bottom. But the thing I look at is they're not last in rebounding margin anymore. They're about 4th or 5th in the league, and J.D. Mula has really helped there. He's not going to score a lot, but he's a great screener, and he can defend. He can stay in front of his guy and prevent him from getting to the rim. So he's been a nice addition, and they moved him into the starting lineup a couple games ago.
I think, Todd, a lot of people were expecting something out of Kyler Filowich that maybe he's not ready to give yet. I mean, I know his role there isn't to go be an explosive scorer or whatever, but I think a lot of people were comparing his skill set or his style of play to Cameron Krutwig. But, obviously his numbers aren't jumping off the page. Talk about his development and his play.
Yeah, I think they started him early because he was a pretty good force. If they could get him the ball in the right spot, he could overpower people and get to the rim and finish. He's improved his free throw shooting a little bit, and he's a decent rebounder, and that's really what they need with the offense that they have. They just need a big to be a good enough player where people got to guard him and they can place him inside out. But he's struggled with turnovers. He's struggled with finishing. I thought at the MTE, and they finally moved Mula in. Mula was supposed to start last year, and because he was hurt, Filowich had to start. And they haven't gotten much from Anthony DiVanzo this year, so they've really played only those two guys really at the 5 spot for them. But Filowich is a nice player. It's just they haven't gotten the offensive production I think that they need, and I think they trust Mula at least can rebound and defend, and maybe give him a basket or two.
Lance Jones, I just so love watching him play. He's a guy that can get downhill on you. He can make the three. He's like a unique kind of player in this league, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's not real big. I mean, he's only 6'1", but he's a little bit of a tank. I mean, he's the little guy that can take you off the dribble and bully, kind of like how Tyreek Key used to. Can bully you to the rim, and he's a great free throw shooter, even though he was like 2 for 9 against Alcorn State. He's shooting 23% from the 3-point line and still averaging over 18 points a game because he can get by you and create for others, or just basically take it himself. Now he's improved his defense. I think he's up there in steals. He's just they really just had to find somebody behind him right now. And Marcus had a good 2 games, but Steven Verplanken was kind of up and down during the MTE. They need him to be more consistent, and they need to find a better inside presence with Mula or Filowich, so they could take some pressure off those guys on the perimeter.
But Verplanken is a guy that can really be a difference maker. And I know preseason I wrote a story for bustingbrackets.com saying I think they're the team that could maybe break into that top 4. I think most of us kind of had a consensus top 4. Drake, Loyola, UNI, and Missouri State would be really vying for the top spot. Now that Southern was that kind of dark horse team that could climb up there. And I still think, waiting for injuries and whatnot, they still have a chance to do that. I'm going to move a little bit and talk about the matchups. And I don't know how much you guys have been able to see the other teams, but sticking with you for a second, Todd, Southern goes to Evansville. And I don't know how much you've been able to look at the Purple Aces. Mm-hmm. They have 4 or 5 pieces that we know very well. They've been there 17 years, each of them. Talk a little bit about the matchup with the Purple Aces.
Yeah, this will be an interesting matchup, Harry, because they kind of play the 5 out. They haven't had Evan Kuhlman 2 of the last 3 games. He has a shoulder injury that kept him out against Eastern Illinois. He played against Akron, didn't play the game before that. He's a different element because he's a guy that can pass out there. He can shoot threes. He's experienced. He's a good screener. He's a guy that can post up, but they don't do that very often with the other guy, Inaruna, who's kind of a slim 6'7", 6'8" guy. But they have 5 guys that can all shoot threes. Shamar Givens and Jawan Newton can get to the basket. So that presents SIU a problem because Northeastern kind of played the same way. Northeastern had 5 guys, 6'6", 6'7", that could all dribble, could all handle it, could all get to the basket, and they really struggled with them. They really weren't in that game very much at all. So they've really got to defend. It's got to be whose game is it going to be? Is it going to be SIU's game where they want to put Filowich under the basket or Mula under the basket and overpower Evansville? Or is it going to be Evansville's game where they're trying to guard them on the perimeter with 5 guards and trying to switch all 5 positions? I think obviously one is an advantage to Evansville, and the other one's an advantage to Southern. So I think usually these Valley games turn into possession by possession games. That could help Southern, and God knows they're going to shoot better from 3 than they have. So I expect them to play very well tomorrow night.
Shamar Givens and Juwan Newton, those 2 guards, they can attack the rim as well as anybody in the league. And you mentioned Kuhlman and Frederking and those guys that have been around a long time. And it'll be interesting to see how Todd Licklider puts that team together. Jim, your thoughts about Coach Licklider? I have just enjoyed talking to him, and he obviously is a guy with a proven track record. Your thoughts about Todd Licklider?
Yeah, he's been around and he knows what he's doing. I'm like you, Harry. I like talking to him on the weekly press conference. He has great thoughts. I think he knows what he wants and a certain kind of player that he wants for his system. And, he's starting to get those guys a little bit. They're going to be a tough out for anybody at any game that they play. I think we found that out a little bit last year. So yeah, like you said, his 2 guards are really, really good. They stack up with any, probably any combo of guards in the league. So yeah, they're definitely going to be a tough out. But like you said, Todd Licklider, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to, expose a team's weaknesses and all that, and play to his team's strengths. Probably as well as any coach in the league, really.
Staying with you, Jim, the second game, I guess, it's the way I've got them listed out here. Missouri State visits Illinois State. And you mentioned about how the struggle to try to match up against Gage Prim and some others. We talked a little bit about Illinois State and what they've got going on. What do you expect the Bears to try to do against the Redbirds tomorrow?
I'll probably score a lot. I think the first team to 80 might win this game. The Bears have. I talked to Dana a little bit today. He had a teleconference as he was driving from Chicago to Bloomington Normal. They actually went to the Bulls game last night.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
they went to talk to Alizé, and they talked to him this morning even. Yeah, Missouri State hasn't been the greatest defensive team either. I talked about Illinois State's defense, and Dana's still not real happy with their defense. He thinks it's improved since that first game, like when Todd said they gave up 99 points at home to SEMO. Missouri State is a veteran team. They added 2 really veteran pieces, obviously, Donovan Clay and Jalen Minette, who's I have not seen them play, but, you look at his stats, he's shooting 57% from 3-point range. And Dan Muller told me they're not your shots, an inch behind the line. They're like 25-footers that he just kind of regularly puts up. So they've got a veteran team. But the thing, like I get to Illinois State, they're just going to have to, you're not going to stop Gage Prim, but you got to slow them down a little bit. Illinois State had last year they played 2 games at Redbird Arena when we did that 2 games in the weekend, and right. Illinois State had a chance in both games in the final 4 minutes, and they couldn't get it done. They had a bigger body on the inside last year with Mahorchik. They don't have quite that size or experience inside defensively. But Chapman's a much better offensive player than Dushan was. So that's going to be kind of the key, how Illinois State just maybe, Prim can't go off for 30 points, and he could do it very easily tomorrow night. If he does that, I don't think Illinois State has a chance. If they can hold them to around 20, I think they have a chance.
Todd, you mentioned Missouri State maybe coming up short in big games. They're an enigma a little bit to me. So talented. If we put it in a computer, I think they're going to win every game. But they have seemingly stubbed their toe in times when we don't think they should. Is there any way you've been able to look at them and say, okay, here's that missing link for the Bears?
Well, I've always thought they needed a closer, but there's not much better closers than Prim. I mean, Prim's about the most automatic basket that you have in the league, and he's an excellent passer. So it's really hard to double him, especially with Mosley and Donovan Clay, and DeMarcus Sharp is having a good year. I expected him to have a great year, and he is. He's at top of the league in assists. They're really loaded offensively, but defensively is where they struggle, I think, Harry. They can't hold people down. You got to play defense in this league to win. Yeah. no great offensive team wins the regular season championship in the Valley. It's proven every year. The top 3 teams in field goal percentage defense are always near the top. And we had a stretch there where it was like 15 out of 16 years, the team that led in that single category won the league every year. And it's in a veteran team, they can score like crazy, but you got to be able to guard when it comes to important games. And I just think they've struggled there. So they're going to have their hands full with Illinois State's guards tomorrow.
So between Minette and Isaiah Mosley and Prim and all those different guys, yeah, they can fill it up. Isaiah Mosley, so talented. I think in that game tomorrow, 4 of the top 5 scorers in the league are going to be in that game. And so if you like balls going through the rim, that's the game to watch on Wednesday night. Also on Wednesday night, Indiana State at Loyola. And I don't know if either of you have been able to watch Indiana State at all, and if they look as different as we thought they might look in terms of their offensive structure and so forth. But they're 3-4, Loyola 5-2, had those 2 losses against top level teams and then beat Arizona State at the Battle for Atlantis. And so I think Loyola they kind of look like Loyola. They're playing good defense. They play 9 guys and they're, being effective. But have either of you been able to pay attention to the Sycamores enough to have a thought about what we are seeing so far?
Yeah, I saw them. I saw them for a little bit of one game that they played, and I can't remember who it was. That was down in Charleston, I think. They just blew them out. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I mean, it was like 30 points in the first half or something like that. I was super impressed by. You're always super impressed when the ball's going in the bucket, like it really was that night for Indiana State. But I kind of like the way that they were playing, kind of harassing teams, and just it's a whole different style than we saw under Greg Lansing. And he's got a lot of guys who played that system for him, where Todd was as the coach. So they're going to be an interesting team to follow this season. But yeah, I saw them, and I saw a little bit of Loyola against Michigan State, and I think Loyola right now is by far the best team in the league. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, they had a great chance to win that game against Michigan State. They're just such a veteran team. And we all thought, man, they're losing Krutwig, such a unique guy. Hudson's doing a real good job. I don't see Indiana State playing with Loyola tomorrow.
Todd, have you seen much of the Sycamores?
I haven't, Harry. I've seen their numbers. I was looking at their numbers this afternoon. They have a couple guys that played for Lincoln Memorial. Losing Tyreek Key is a big change, I think, for them. Cooper Neese hasn't been good enough for them to carry the load. Julian Larry's playing a lot. Had a pretty good year for him, but they're just so new. But their numbers, I mean, they always have about 15, 16, 17 assists, which is what I expected. Mm-hmm. Their defensive numbers are not bad. It's just hard to get a read on them because they've played so many different teams. They played Oklahoma, New Mexico State, and Ball State, within 5-10 days. I can't really judge them, but I have watched Loyola a little bit. I think we all wondered how much of an impact that would be, not having Krutwig, but having everybody else.
And not Moser.
I think you see, Hudson's great, but Hudson's not a passer. But they have enough to carry them. They should have beaten Michigan State.
They should have.
And they probably should have beaten Auburn too, I thought, the way they played in the first half. But I think them and Drake I think Drake's going to come around. I have a lot of faith in Drake. I was really disappointed they lost 3 close games in a row, but I think they'll be in it too.
It was surprising, wasn't it? They beat Richmond and then they go and can't come up with those wins in their MTE. That was disappointing. And still some opportunities for Drake. They play St. Louis here in a couple of weeks out in Las Vegas, and they've got some games to play as well. Northern is at Bradley, and you guys, Todd, you mentioned the defensive field goal percentage. Bradley leads the league in that department, and they've struggled a little bit out of the gate. They're struggling to score a little bit, but they host Northern Iowa. I talked to Ben Jacobson after their win the other night against St. Bonaventure. And I said, so 50 points you were in the 50s in the first 2 games, and like I think 80, 90, and 90 or something in the next 3. And he said, I told the guys last night I'm not talking about the first 2 games anymore, so I'm not talking to you about those 2 games. But they've been playing better lately. We thought they would be really good. AJ Green gets 35 the other night. They're just kind of a proven commodity. We have to feel like they're going to be around the top of the conference at the end of the year. But Jim, you might be closer to Bradley because of where you're at physically, and you're in that same market a little bit. Either of you, thoughts about the Braves?
Yeah, all I've seen of Bradley. Yeah, I've seen Bradley just on clips on the TV news. They're long. I mean, boy, they're a long team. Boya's back, and they have the kid from France. I can't even pronounce his name. Harry, you're better at that stuff than I am.
Malavai.
Yeah, thank you.
Malavai Leons. Yeah,
yeah. He's 6'9". He's long. Yeah, they're struggling to score, like Todd said. That's all I've seen of them. About Northern Iowa, though, we all expect AJ. I think we all expected AJ Green just to walk on the court and be AJ Green. Well, he hadn't played a game in almost a year. He had surgery on both hips. It doesn't. Fans expect that, and we shouldn't. As sports writers, we've been around the game long enough, or we should know that it takes time to just kind of get your game timing back and all that. And I think he got it back. I think, like Todd said, they are going to be a dangerous team. I mean, I always thought, even at the beginning of the season, if AJ Green was healthy, I thought they could really win the league this year. That wouldn't surprise me if they still won the league.
They were missing a couple of guys. They got Bourne back and Cole Henry back just recently, and they're playing better now. Todd, you probably saw them at your MTE. Yes, they were in the same one as Southern.
I watched Bradley's two of their 3 games. I watched, and they should have won their first game. They had Colorado State down most of the game and blew it in the last 2 minutes. Terry Roberts makes a lot of tough plays, really handles the ball for them, makes clutch plays for them. He's a really nice addition. They just got Boya back. He comes off the bench, and Jashawn Henry had just come back too. He missed a couple games.
Right. He
had just come back the game before that, the MTE. I think he's going to be a first team all league player. I just think he's got so many skills, can do so many things for them, but they've got to start winning games. They've faltered defensively a little bit late in those 2 losses that they had, and then they lost their last game as well at the Virgin Islands. But they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be competitive as well. Their guards with Terry Roberts, and I'm trying to think Ville, and then Rink really had a terrible tournament. Rink had a terrible tournament, and they were still very competitive. So obviously I think he's a lot more talented than he's played. I think that's going to be a big game for them. It's going to be a tough one for Northern Iowa. Just like you said, they're still getting. They just got Bowen Bourne back. They just got Cole Henry back. Both those guys played a lot of minutes last year. And then just kind of integrating AJ Green into that. I think that's got to be a question for him. Do I take the last shot or do I give it to Austin? I mean, if I'm not going to take it, or he's like, I'm going to take it. And everyone's got to get used to that. So I think it's a little bit of an adjustment with UNI.
And then our final game is Thursday. Valpo goes to Drake, and we talked a little bit about the Bulldogs, and I think we've been a little disappointed in just results. 3-3 on the so far in the season for the Bulldogs. But we were just talking about Bradley. I've just got such confidence that in tight games, somehow Brian Wardle's going to get it done. And in the same light, Darren DeVries has just proven to us, hasn't he, in 3 years, that he's a bona fide, legit, big-time coach. And I just expect them to win all the time because they have talent, and he is such a good, motivator and chess player.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Tucker DeVries and watching them and how they play defense. And they could have beaten Belmont. I was kind of hoping they would get that one. But the Alabama game, and then they played North Texas, who's supposed to be really good. So they played a good schedule. Yeah. They're going to be tough to beat with Shaq healthy now and Brody, but they don't really have a ton of depth behind that top 6. Not a lot of guys that play after that. So I think losing, I wonder if losing Okai John Goose is a bigger deal than we've made it. He's played a couple minutes. He would have been probably the backup to Brody at some point. So I wonder if that depth has hurt them a little bit more than I expected.
Yeah, and Wilkins didn't play, maybe played 4 or 5 minutes the other night. I haven't been able to find out if he got hurt or something. He was cramping up in one of the games I watched him play, and then the next game he only played like 4 or 5 minutes. So trying to pay attention to that one as well. Jim, Ben Crickey comes back, and all he does is get in his 4 games back, 2 of them, he gets 25 and 26. He's a difference maker, isn't he? And Sheldon Edwards looks like he's going to be a star. They've got all those Big Ten guys, and they're still waiting for Kobe King to come back in about a week. Valpo could be better than I think maybe some people thought.
Yeah, I think I picked Valpo like 6th in the league even. I kind of thought that they were going to make the move. And like you say, Harry, they still could. Those Big Ten transfers, they're good players. It just takes, like I said before about Northern Iowa with AJ, you just don't roll on the court and play smoothly from the start. And I think Illinois State kind of shows that a little bit. These guys haven't played with each other, and Valpo's the same way. I think Valpo has a lot of talent, and I think I don't know if you guys agree with me. I think Crickey's like the most underrated good guy and good player in the league. Nobody ever talks about this guy, and I don't know. Every time they play against Illinois State, he seems to do a lot of stuff, and I just think he's a very good player. And yeah, I expect Valpo to kind of be in that middle mix of teams this season.
Thoughts about them, Todd?
Yeah, I just wonder how good Kobe King is and what kind of impact, how long it'll take. I mean, new players generally don't, light the world on fire in the Valley. It usually takes them a couple weeks, a couple months. Usually, JUCO players, their second year. I mean, a lot of times they just haven't had a lot of newcomers of the year that were JUCO transfers or even Division I transfers. But they they're intriguing to me. They lost to the Division II team. That tells me that they're just not together right now. I don't expect much from them. I just don't think they have the roster to compete with everybody else. But I'm curious to see what they're going to look like when they have everybody available.
Preseason poll, they were 7th, as I'm looking at it over here on my notes, and in terms of that preseason poll, and they are at Drake. Drake 14-1 at home last year. They're tough to beat at the Knapp Center. And I think if you're like me, it seems to me that it's still those top 4 teams, Drake, Loyola, UNI, and Missouri State are the teams that we think are going to be there at the end. Is there anybody that could jump into that top 4 from either of your guys' opinion?
Oh, boy. Just thinking off the top of my head right now, Harry, no, I think Southern Illinois would probably be the one team that, may be able to sneak in there, possibly over Missouri State right now. Missouri State would be the team that I think unless they shore up their defense, I don't care how many points you can score, you still got to defend. And like Todd said, once these conference games go, especially, when we start for real at the end of or at the beginning of January, they're possession by possession games, and you got to play defense, and Southern Illinois will play defense. Missouri State, they need to really lock in on a defensive end. So I think Southern Illinois could possibly work their way into that top 4.
It'll be interesting. A minute ago, Todd, you talked about hoping Drake would beat Belmont, and I want to move into that expansion conversation. The Bruins will be in the Missouri Valley Conference next year, and I think most of us think that was just like kind of the sun rises in the east and water is wet. That made sense, right? Belmont's should be in the Missouri Valley Conference. There's a lot of talk out there that the league could stand pat. The league would be back down to 10 teams, up to 11, down to 10 with Loyola leaving, which is still ticking me off. And we've also heard 3-4 other teams might be in the conversation. And I'm sure one of you is going to break news right here and tell us who the next Missouri Valley team is.
No, I can't tell you that, but I will tell you, I've heard from several people, that Texas Arlington is in the mix, or at least being talked about in the mix. And that's an intriguing school to me. I think, I think Murray State's a good option. I would like to see them go to 12 teams if they're going to do this. I don't think Kansas City's a good option personally, but I can see Illinois, Chicago. I don't know if I haven't researched them enough to see if they're a great option, but certainly get into the Chicago market. Yaklich has that program going right now. But, getting Belmont, losing Loyola, does it even the playing field? I think it does a little bit. I think Loyola's got a few more resources than everybody else does. But either way, I'm excited. The future of the Valley. I'm excited that this new commissioner is very aggressive in expansion. I think when he's made pretty good decisions so far. I'm just curious to see when or if they try to go to 12 teams.
Jim, your thoughts about those? And those are the rumored teams, of course: Murray, Kansas City, UT Arlington, and you mentioned somebody else, UIC, I guess. And so those are the teams that other people have rumored, and I've talked to some people. During the last round, they were even talking to probably Grand Canyon State. And so the idea that they would go to Texas or to Arizona isn't brand new. I mean, that was being talked about the last round. During the last round, they talked about Omaha. They talked about Milwaukee. And it's curious to me that neither of those teams are really in the conversation as we talk about it tonight. Jim, your thoughts about what might take place in the expansion world?
Well, I'm kind of like Todd. I think, first of all, Murray State is the biggest no-brainer in the history. They are, Harry, you were there for that. They're a Missouri Valley team. They're basketball centric. I mean, the whole sports program revolves around the basketball program. I know they have football, and I don't know enough about it to know if the football tie-in with the Missouri Valley Football Conference would be a problem there or not. But I just think Murray State is just such a no-brainer. They're so close to Southern Illinois. They're down by Evansville. Just they fit so well into the geographic footprint of the Valley. Plus, they have a great hoops tradition, and this is a hoops conference. I think they need to sign them up ASAP. Now, the other team, I'm like Todd. I think they should go to UIC. UIC, I don't know if you guys have ever been to their home arena. It's a hockey arena. They dumped hockey about 20 years ago to pump all their money into men's basketball. It's a decent arena. It's not bad. They have other good sports. They have a great baseball stadium, I guess. Curtis Granderson is an alum from there. He built the baseball stadium. They've had a very good baseball program. And I personally think it's important for the Missouri Valley to be in Chicago. You get a lot of players from the Chicago area. And Todd knows it when, he's been at SIU games there, like I've been at Illinois State games at Loyola, especially when Loyola was, not very good. There were more Illinois State fans in the crowd than Loyola. There's a lot of alum from those schools, and I think they would just, go a little west to UIC and go to the games there. I'd really like to see them add Murray State and UIC. I think those are the two best fits.
I like both of those options. I can't imagine in these times that going to Texas makes sense for the track team or whatever. But I do get it from the basketball side. But I wonder about the Olympic sports, those other non-revenue sports, and how they can make those long trips. And I wonder that same thing about Loyola. Todd, you said maybe they have more resources than the rest of the league. Your thoughts, either of you, about the Ramblers moving to the A10? I thought it was an interesting move, not shocking, but a little surprising for me.
Yeah, I was surprised, Harry. I thought they were very happy in the Valley, but when you really look at it, it doesn't makes a lot of sense. I mean, they're competing with St. Louis. They're by far the biggest city in the league. Mm-hmm. It's just the A10 is just the weirdest league in the country to me, with Duquesne and St. Bonaventure and St. Louis and Richmond and just these weird geographic schools. But these schools don't care about travel. They care about NCAA tournament revenue. And those schools are going to bring some NCAA tournament revenue.
And Loyola's got a good soccer team, I think. St. Louis is in the quarterfinals, semifinals, something like that of the national soccer tournament this weekend. And so, maybe there's a great fit, and maybe that helps the A10 get more west and satisfy some of the desires of Dayton and St. Louis to have somebody closer. But I think I agree. Their geography, they're all over the place. They're Virginia, New York, Philadelphia, Ohio, Illinois, and St. Louis. I mean, it's just, it is a crazy setup. So the Bruins, though, Jim, they seem to fit perfectly. They're a basketball-centric team as well. What's interesting to me is it's going to be an interesting first year. Like, they have about 4 guys that have been there like 6 years right now, and all those guys will be gone next year. And Casey Alexander and Belmont. I mean, they're redshirting guys. They redshirt guys every year, so they'll have people. But it's going to be an interesting transition year for them because it may be a down year for them, whether they were coming to the league or not.
Yeah, you remember when Loyola came in? I mean, they're not going to be obviously as bad as Loyola was. For a while there, I was wondering why the Valley invited Loyola into the league. They were 10th, 9th, 10th those first couple of years. Then they get Krutwig, and all of a sudden everything turned around. Belmont comes in, like you say, Harry, with even though they're going to lose a lot of guys, I'm sure they have a lot of guys in reserve, like you say, who are redshirting or they're bringing in next year. Belmont's going to be a great fit into the league. Illinois State played there a couple years ago, and they have a really nice arena. Their campus kind of, I was there in the dark, so I didn't see everything, but it just kind of reminded me of Loyola without the lake. You know what I mean? Lake Michigan wasn't there, obviously, or they don't have a lake down there on their campus, but it looked like a nice private school campus. And yeah, I think it's just a great fit for the league.
We were talking about Murray, Todd. How is that a natural rivalry for Southern Illinois? Will that juice it up if Murray would come into the league?
I think I was hoping they would play, this year. They had been in talks to play again this year. I think it's a natural rivalry. Yeah, they both have some great history in the NCAA tournament and going to the Sweet 16, and they have a much better NBA history really than anybody in the Valley recently. Yeah. If you look at Murray State's NBA players, to go back to Belmont, I think Belmont's probably the best program coming in. If you look at Valparaiso and Loyola, this team's won 19 or 20 games in a row, 15, 16 years in a row. I mean, even though they're going to lose some really good players potentially, I think they're really going to be solid coming in. I think they're going to be competitive coming in. If they can beat Drake on a neutral floor, I think it was. I think they're going to be real competitive. I'm real excited to see them. I won't get to see them very much, but I hope to see them on television at least.
Belmont is known for shooting 3-pointers, but I think they've led the nation in 2-point percentage like a whole bunch of years in a row. I mean, they run efficient offense. They're an amazing offensive team. I don't think I watch any team that I see a lot of run more efficient, right kind of cuts, right kind of open man, all those kinds of things. So amazing to watch them. It's precision like under Rick Byrd and now under Casey Alexander. Mm-hmm. Before we go, and I've kept you guys a lot longer than I told you I would keep you. Todd, first to you, I just want to say it again. We're just going to miss you.
I appreciate that.
Knocking stuff out and telling us about your team, but also just our friendship, to be able to connect and talk, and wish you and your wife the best. I know she's had a couple of years. She's in the healthcare profession, and that's not been easy for her. And she's gone through some health things herself. And so I know it hasn't been the easiest last 3 or 4 years for you guys. But we dynamically appreciate who you are and what you've meant to our league and to mine, Jim, and other people's lives.
Well, thanks, Harry. I've really appreciated being in the league with you guys and just being a part of it, trying to do my part, and I look forward to supporting the league as a fan.
And then Jim, what's next? I follow you on Twitter, and Jim is at the Illinois State game, and then he's got 5 football games on a Saturday and 18 volleyball games the next day. I mean, do you sleep, or do they just plug you in at night?
I think they just plugged me in for about the last 2 months here. We're down to basically a two-man sports staff, and I've covered a lot of different things, Harry, in the last couple of months that I really haven't covered for about the last 25 years. But I'll tell you what, and I told Leah Johnson, this Illinois State's volleyball coach today, I was out there, I'm going to be doing a story on them going to the tournament. It's kind of fun. I hadn't really seen a lot of Illinois State volleyball in a couple of years, and to go to a couple other matches. I don't know much volleyball you guys go to, but those things are entertaining as heck. I mean, there's so much energy that just from the players and in the stands, and it's kind of like it's almost like a little mini rock concert going on there, and I just love the energy of it. And I told Leah, I said, when I retire, Leah, I'm going to be I might be a regular here, just in the stands and all that. She told me don't retire too soon, and I said, well, you never know, it could be sooner than I even think. So we'll never know. But I've had a lot of fun doing a lot of different sports here since the fall sports season began, high school and college stuff. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of revved my engine up a little bit, I think.
And then, Todd, do you know if the Southern will there be a beat writer replacing you?
Yeah, I think Bucky Dent has taken my spot. He's got to cover football this Saturday. So I think Les is doing the Southern Miss game. It kicks off at 8:00. So it won't be in the paper, but I think Les Winkler is coming back for the game on Saturday. My. So that'll be exciting. They played terrible when they were down at Southern Miss and still almost won. But yeah, then when football is done, I think he's going to do that. And we're in the process of hiring another sports writer. I don't know how long that'll take, but I hope it happens soon because we're in the middle of high school basketball season 2, and Logan's top 10 in the country in the JUCO.
Wow. They're always good, or typically they're good. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the time. So appreciate your guys. I've told this to a lot of people. You know, I kind of am a broadcaster by background and ended up starting writing a bunch of stuff about the Valley, and guys like you have made it easier on me. You've accepted me into your life and world a little bit and coached me up when I needed it. And so I appreciate you two and the other beat writers that have kind of held my hand the last couple of years. But I appreciate your time tonight. I think it's going to be an exciting Valley basketball season for the folks watching at home. We appreciate you spending time with us tonight. You've been watching Voices of the Valley, part of the Valley Hoops Insider podcast and website. Remember, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.